Joining us right now, John Burnett joins us, and David Eisenbach. John Burnett is the managing director at Empire One Group. He's a columnist for Newsmax, and also a candidate for New York City Comptroller. And there on the bottom, David Eisenbach, our favorite professor, Democrat from New York, professor at Columbia University, and also David was a candidate for New York City Public Advocate. My partner, Frank Moreno. Hey, guys. How are you? Welcome.
Hey, John.
Oh, well, thanks.
All right. So Frankie and I talked about it a little earlier in the show, and it seems like all the craze these days is reopening. Johnny, I want to ask you first, and then hear David's thoughts on it. But what do you? We're really looking at a small business crisis here. We got to do something for these small mom and pops.
Absolutely. You know, the thing is that I'm glad Congress, the president, and Secretary Mnuchin actually came together for the previous phases. However, as you can see, leaving it up to the banks, the big banks, the community banks got it right. It's the big banks, right, that looked at this as high risk and also looked at this as, you know, a way to dole out capital to their largest customers. I think going forward, what they need to do is go by business codes. I don't like cherry picking, but you know we have to get granular here if we really want money to go out to the small business. And you know what, John? You know the thing is, I'm tired of saying small business. Why? Because in this case, we might need to start saying micro businesses, right? Because small business, as you can see, the Lakers got money. Harvard with a $40 billion endowment got money. We need to actually maybe tranche this out between micro and small business and really target how we need to execute and craft the legislation so that way there's no confusion with regard to the banks executing what needs to be. Why? Because small business is the largest employer in America.
Well, David's our favorite Democrat, and David, I would assume you just want everyone to stay home and the government to send them $2,000 a month.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Sticking with the small business issue, as you know, I've been a small business advocate since I ran for public advocate in 2017, calling out Bill de Blasio for his abysmal failure to protect small business and the empty storefronts that now we're going to see get worse. As far as this legislation, supported by both Democrats and Republicans, it was designed by the banks for the banks. They walked away with $10 billion in payouts. It was not about a bailout for small business, and that's why it was such a dismal failure to begin with, right? Big business, the oligarchs, they wound up getting trillions of dollars, but people, small business owners like Ming Lam, who owns the largest Chinese restaurant in Chinatown, right?
Yep.
He gets rejected for the funds from Citibank, right? We see this time and time again. The rich get richer during these crises. The middle class, the real small businesses get crushed.
Gentlemen, and that's one of the reasons John is absolutely right to praise the job that the community banks did in stepping up to the plate for small business. But let me ask you about the next phase of aid, assuming there's going to be one, which appears likely. You're seeing a lot of not only businesses and individuals suffer, but the pocketbooks of states and cities around the country just being hammered. And increasingly, states like New York and many others are looking to Washington, D.C. for help. There seems to be a big dichotomy about whether there's going to be direct aid to the states from Washington. What's your view on the likelihood of direct aid to the states? And give me your take on the merits of whether that's something Washington should be doing.
You want me to take that? We should have. New York State should have gotten direct aid in the first round. And I don't blame Trump and Mitch McConnell for not giving a damn about New York. I blame Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer for not standing up and saying, we're not going for any of this giveaway, right? Unless we get New York State bailed out.
Yeah,
I completely disagree with David. I think we need to put Main Street ahead of big business and
that's what I said, John. What do you mean you disagree? New York State, should New York State be getting some of that federal money that year after year we give to the federal government? We get 70 cents on the dollar that we give in. We are a giver state. Meanwhile, you got Kentucky, Alabama, major taker states, decade after decade, and now they're getting stingy. Now that New York State needs federal money.
David, let's not overlook the fact that before COVID-19, we had a $6 billion budget gap, right? So New York State was already being governed in a fiscally irresponsible manner before COVID-19, right?
That's
Here it
sort
is.
of irrelevant right now. That's water under the bridge. The question is, what are we going to do now?
And New York State, New York State, right, as a whole, whether you're talking about upstate or New York City, right, as a whole, it is the worst business environment in the entire country, right? So we need to, this is an opportunity to get our finances in order, right? Going forward, how is it going to be? How is it going to be operated and governed? And second of all, we need to make sure that we get money to these small business, these micro businesses. That's first and foremost, and checks into the hands of individuals that are suffering before we bail out states that have access to capital. You just made the point. David, that money has gone to these big businesses, right? And these big businesses and corporations have access to capital. The same thing with places like New York State, Empire State, they have access to capital markets. But you know what, David? The small mom and pop shops, right? The people that put their livelihoods on the line, they need help. And you're saying that New York should be bailed out before those individuals? I completely disagree.
John. I have been screaming about the small business crisis in New York City for years, before this crisis started, the virus crisis.
Yeah, hey,
all right?
Dave,
so don't sort of claim that I'm saying that the small business shouldn't get any money. What I'm saying is, yes, New York State could be more fiscally responsible, but we're not going to fix it now.
We don't need to put states ahead of the people.
When Cuomo's out there, like New York, and we got hit the worst here in New York, but when he's out there and he's talking about police and fire and all these other guys, number one, them nurses, doctors, EMTs, they put themselves on the line every single day.
That's right.
But
that's
that's already part of the state's operating budget. Do we have overtime? Do we have emergency pay? I'm sure there's going to be considerations made for that. But before the state starts trying to cover up all the problems they had in the past with more federal intervention, maybe Burnett is onto something that we should take care of the mom and pops first and then circle back and give Cuomo what he needs.
David, let me say a quick point here.
Yeah.
The reason why we need to put business first, because if we don't put business first, where the hell will New York get its revenue from?
Okay, John,
guys, we got 10 seconds left in this segment. New format, so we're on a hard clock. We're going to take a quick break right here. We're going to come back with more of John Burnett, David Eisenbach. We call it the Mix It Up because these guys always duke it out. And Frankie's with me. We're going to join you again right after this. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Biz TV.